All right, being 5:15, we'll call for Finance and Personnel Committee to order. Please stand for the pledge of allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
For a motion to adopt the agenda.
So move.
Second. Motion made by Mike, seconded by Bob. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. For approval of the March 5th meeting minutes.
Make that motion.
Motion made by Bob, seconded by Mike. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Public comment? Seeing none. On number 4, Hortonville, Hortonia Fire District Automatic Mutual Aid Agreement. Chief Mark Wolfert.
Yeah, we wanted to enter into this agreement with the Hortonville, Hortonia Fire District. Makes a lot of sense, especially during the day. We'd have, response times. We're usually pretty shorthanded during the day, and we could have Hortonville coming to a structure fire in our city automatically without having to call. Vice versa with them, we would respond to the section that's outlined here in their territory, saving several minutes to their response time too. So it's kind of a situation where we each help each other out, and we do a lot of stuff with Hortonville now already, but this will save quite a bit of time, response time, and it would help us out a lot in the daytime when we're shorthanded. So I don't know if you guys got any questions.
Can you explain the shorthandedness on our end and how their officers or their employees are closer to their station? I guess.
Yeah, so they have, I believe, when we talked to them, they got 4 firefighters that work right across the street from their station. They work at Thompson Metals. They're allowed to leave. Those guys can respond, right away, which would be helpful, because we are lacking during the day with the firefighter response. So that would be very helpful on our end. And they're only going to respond to structure fire. So it's not something that they're going to be responding to every call that we have. It's just going to be for structure fire. So.
And it would be for our entire city limits.
Our entire city limits.
They only respond, or we only respond to the areas that you
outlined
see
there on
the screen.
Yep.
And this was already talked about at the PFC.
This was approved at the PFC.
And Attorney Stegbauer said this type of agreement does have to go to council. So that's why it started at the PFC. Now it's coming to the Finance Personnel Committee for you guys to potentially make a recommendation to council for consideration.
I'd make a motion that we approve the Hortonia Fire District Automatic Mutual Agreement with Melinda.
Second. Motion made by Bob, seconded by Tim. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? You got the Bernie's up stuff? Okay.
I've got it, thank you.
All right, motion carried. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Education policy update. Chad?
You guys all have a good evening.
Great. Thanks, Mark. So in your packet, I put a copy of 2 pages of the policy, of vacation policy. And the reason why we want to bring this up is to talk about being competitive in the workforce. Not only we're trying to make sure that we're retaining employees. I put some recommendation changes in the packet. However, like I said, I emailed everyone some updates that we talked about more recently this week. Unfortunately, it printed off in a lot more pages than I intended, but basically it's 2 pages that we're going to be looking at for the vacation policy. So again, the purpose is to be competitive in the workforce. Vacation is obviously very important to new employees. We've heard it over and over that time off is more important than overtime. So bringing new employees that have 10, 15 plus years of experience, it's hard to bring them to work for us if we require them to go down to our basic vacation schedule. So in the past, we've started employees at 2 work weeks. If someone has up to 4 weeks plus at a different employer already, it's going to be hard for them to, be attracted to come to us. So in your packet, you can see that, or what up on the screen, what I printed out for you. This is our current vacation schedule. So, at hire, they get 2 work weeks, but it's prorated based on the first year. In the past, they had to wait 6 months before they could use it. I'll talk about that a little bit later, but then you can see after every 6 years and the last term after 7 years, you increase 1 more week of vacation on that. So the changes I'm proposing, number 1, is for new hires. As you can see in the document I handed out, what I'm proposing is for new hires, vacation accruals as reflected above may be adjusted from the city administrator as part of a new employee hire offer letter. So a little bit of a negotiation piece when we're negotiating for new hire to come here. However, we put some more information behind it, saying adjustments will be limited to the schedules based on previous years of relevant service as listed above, but they have to start at the first year of the corresponding vacation cycle. And then they got to work that full 6 or plus more years for the next vacation cycle. So I put an example in there to make it crystal clear. So an employee is hired with 10 years of relevant experience. So you can see 10 years of relevant experience, they would be in that 3 to 4 work week section for service. However, we would credit the employee with 6 years of service. So they would start at the base of that year of service. So they would get 3 work weeks, but they would have to work their additional 6 years to get to the next threshold of 4 weeks. Internally, we talked about that. It's not quite fair for an employee. Say someone was hired and they have 11 years of experience. Well, to have them only work 1 year and they get their next threshold of 4 work weeks in 1 year of work with the city didn't seem quite fair, especially for the employees who have been here from day one moving forward. So that was an idea that we put on, that you start at the bottom of that threshold and you got to work your way up. And then we also would cap it that anyone coming in, the maximum that we can give them is 4 work weeks. So if someone has 20 years of experience, we would still start with 4 work weeks, and then you work your way up from there. The other caveat, and this is what spurred some of the conversation this week, we had a new hire that started on Monday, and they have vacation that's already planned, in the next 6 weeks during their probationary period. Airline tickets might be paid for, things like that. In the past, we wouldn't allow any vacation to be used until after their probationary period. And we've had numerous times where people were coming in, but they're like, oh, I got a vacation already planned, I got it already paid for. At that point in time, we've allowed them to take time off without pay during that negotiated period. I did some research for some other communities, and it sounds like this might be a better balance, that potentially we would allow new hires to allow them to use 1 work week, up to 1 work week of their vacation threshold during the first 6 months of the probationary period. However, if they terminate their employment during the first 6 months, that vacation time would be reduced on the employee's final paycheck. So it sounds like that's something that other communities have done. So again, something that out there to try to help us recruit. Again, if someone wants to start, with the city and they've got like 15 years of experience, it's hard to get them to start back at 2 work weeks vacation if they've already accumulated that at a previous job. So it just helps us better with employee recruitment. Any questions? Yep.
Can they take day by day, or you have to take vacation week by week to a time?
We allow vacation on an hourly basis, even quarter hour, down to the quarter hour. So they don't have to take a full day. They don't have to take a full week. We do allow increments to be flexible.
How many full-time employees does this affect?
Oh, what do we got, Judy?
54.
Yep.
Doesn't affect anybody, right? It only affects the new hires.
The new hires.
So it's not gonna affect
Well,
anybody.
it's figured out, right?
Correct.
Right, so somebody,
But I completely understand if you have a guy that's got 12 years experience, that's got 4 weeks vacation, he's not coming here for 2 weeks vacation.
That's fair enough, making them drop down before they can get to the next step.
Mhm.
Even though they got the time, but not the say time here in the city. I agree with, I think that's a good idea.
So,
Still putting their service in there, just
Right.
starting out.
Right.
A little bit of something light on.
yeah, so in this example, if someone came in with 15 years of prior relative experience, they could start at 4 work weeks. We would credit them with 12 years, not the full 15.
Yeah.
They would have to work another 6 years to get to their 5 weeks. But that's much better than starting fresh with 2 weeks of vacation when they probably have 4 more at their other job already. Any other questions?
I'll make a motion to extend the vacation policy update
As presented? Yep.
as presented.
Sorry.
Okay, motion's been made by Tim, seconded by Mike. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Moody's rating presentation. Judy?
So last week, I think in the minutes or in my notes or something, we talked about that the city actually in the utility, water and sewer, in the sewer, water and electric department, utility department, that our bond rating went up. And then we off the cuff tried to explain it. And so I think we ended the discussion with, why don't we bring in what that looks like so we can give you a little bit of background of what we go through every time that we go through a bonding. So to start with, I think we got real confused about what the numbers look like. So I pulled this actually just off the internet about Moody's bond rating scale. And what I really want to focus on, there's a lot of other information in what I gave you here, and I'm not going to go through every detail about this. But what happened with that rating is we were at an A3, and the city went up in the utility side. So we have GO debt, and then we have the revenue bond debt. So I'm talking about the revenue bond debt that we just went out for Oshkosh Street. So again, we got a different kind of a phone call from Moody's saying that they wanted to do a rating call with us, and we had never been on a rating call previously where we weren't bonding at the time that they were asking us to provide all this information for a rating call. So I got on the horn with Harry Radix from Ellers and Chad, and I'm like, they want to do a rating call. And Harry's like, okay, so I'm not really sure why, because they said they wanted our ratings closer together. So we are at an A1 for our GO debt, and at the time we were at an A3 for the revenue bond side. So Harry's like, okay, never heard of that before, but move forward with the information, got ourselves ready for the rating call. And at the end of the day, after we finished that, and like I said, that's a lot of work in our office, going through and looking at all of the factors, and you'll see that on the rating that we got on the next pages that we need to go through. And especially when I'm estimating, because we don't have an audit to look back at. They'll go back to 2023, but because 2024 wasn't audited, then I have to prepare all those financials and start talking to them about what that's gonna look like. So Chad and I got ready, we did that meeting, and then they came back and upgraded our revenue side to an A2. So we went from A3 to A2. And then again, our GO debt is at an A1. We have been talking and Chad and I have been visiting with Moody's and Ellers about our bond rating for GO debt. And we were hoping that when we went to debt this time, that they would actually look at our GO debt and move us up to AA3. So in the weeds, my mind is telling me, and nobody said this to me, but I'm like, maybe they want to move it up because they're going to move up our other one. Well, then we didn't end up geodetting. It wasn't over $1 million, and others didn't think it was worth our money to pay all those fees to get the money through. Then we will be going to debt in some capacity, but we're waiting until we get through the revenue side, and then we're gonna work through what that's gonna look like. We have a $2 million grant that we're not gonna see until next year, so trying to work through that process and pay as little, obviously as little as interest as we can as a city. So again, we're working through that. So that's what I wanted to provide you with. So that's what their ratings look like. So when we said them last week, I think it was really hard for you to visualize, well, what does A3 mean and where do we sit on the scale? But you can see that the city sits in a really nice place when it comes to rate. We have a very decent rate. So we sit at A1, we sit in the P1 section, and then A2, which is right below, and the P2 section. And again, there's a lot of other information on here, and it's not all about government bonding. There's some company bonding and stuff on here too. But if you want to read through the rest of it, I thought it was most important that you understand what the numbers look like before we look at the actual rating itself. So then what comes to the city is this Moody's rating. So Chad and I will get this from Moody's prior to it being published, and it's a big deal that we not share any of this information with anybody else, that we take a look at it and make sure what is in their information is correct. So we have to take the time to page through this, make sure that they're not saying or earmarking anything that we wouldn't think is correct or isn't accurate. Otherwise, we have to get on the horn and call them and talk to them and say, you know, I don't think this looks right, or I don't think that looks right in conjunction with ours, and we're talking about what this looks like. So this was the actual publication that went in the paper that said we were upgraded and affirmed at an A2. And then our geo debt is at A1. And then probably a couple of things that Chad and I look at lots when we're looking at what this looks like. So our credit strengths are our sound financial position, our low, moderate leverage and low fixed cost, and our strong debt service coverage. So when they're looking at the utilities, they care about how many times are you covered after revenues, expenses? Are you able, how much money is left over, and how many times are you able to pay your debt off? And they want that number at least 1.25, and we're at more like 2.25 or twice what they're asking for. So these were all positive things when we were going into this. One of the things that our credit challenge is our regional economic growth, and our residential income within our district is similarly is lower than our similarly rated peers. And we're working on that. There's one where last time we went and looked at our geo debt, we could talk about all of the increase in assessed values, and we were definitely pointing at that and talking about all of the increasing growth within our city. So the other one is the limited revenue raising flexibility. We can't change that one. We can talk about all the positive things we do, and I can tell you, when I talk to Moody's about us taking our operational expenditures and revenues that are left over in 1 year and moving them over to be able to provide some dollars for our capital, they think very positively of that movement between funds, because it's going into capital and gives you some extra dollars, because they understand our revenue, that we don't have a lot of flexibility on the revenue that the state actually imposes us in levies. The relatively low system liquidity, I talked about that. And then the customer base, I think the water electric utility does have some of their higher dollars that they receive in revenue is received from a small group of people. So they look at that kind of information also. But they're smaller on, or lower on the list. So the one that we can mostly take a look at is that economic growth. And I think Chad has done a great job getting businesses in here, and it is something that they're looking at for our geo debt and maybe possibly raising in the future. And then they talk about the things that could factor in an upgrade, and the economics, they talk about a second time there. Fund balance. So this year, when we took a look at moving money out of or out of the general fund into the capital, I was building on fund balance this year because I knew one of the things they were looking at is continuous building. Even though we have a really healthy fund balance, they wanted more at 50%. Versus the 25%, even though 25% is extremely healthy, and they'll say that, but it's one of the factors that Moody's looks at. So I was hoping that we were gonna be closer to 35 or 40 by the end of this audit cycle, and I was actually just talking to Brent before I came in here, and we were talking about that, but he wasn't quite that far yet, because it is one of the things I always wanna know, like how much did we add to our unassigned fund balance? I think that's about all I wanted. Chad, you have anything you want to add to the process or
Nope, I think you-
any of a lot of numbers in here and a lot of data, so.
Yeah, I think you did a good job.
So if you want to take a look at it, it's quite interesting. One of the things when I go through here, you can see in '02, they talk about, in 2022, they talk about how we went down in dollars, and now we're going back up in 2023, and that's when we did the downtown project and we actually funded it fully in cash. So things like that aren't always bad when you're looking at ups and downs. It just has to be explainable. So that's what we're doing when we go in and we talk to Moody's. How come it did that? And, you know, I can see you came back, and what was your purpose? They really want to know that that was used for infrastructure and not operational costs. And that's what it was used for. That's about all I got. Anyone have any questions on that?
Any of the grants or anything tied, do you think, the federal government, or is this all state? When you go for grants and stuff?
Actually, our Moody's rating has nothing to do with the grants that are coming from the federal government. None of our bonding has anything to do with that, unless we were to bond for a grant. Well, I guess I can't say that because the road actually does have grant dollars. Oshkosh Street has $2 million that will be coming in. And the effect for us is that we need to figure out how to fund the $2 million till the project is done. So Moody's doesn't look real negatively on that. Of course, they want you to be able to do it in the most economical fashion for the city, but they don't look that, they look at it as a positive that you're receiving additional funding for your project that your citizens don't have to pay for, or that you're not bonding for.
And my understanding is that the Oshkosh one is LRIP, Local Road Improvement Program. I'm not 100% sure, but I'm under the impression that that program is a state-funded program, not a federal funded program. State-funded as in DOT and like gas tax and stuff like that. Whereas like downtown last year, the STP Urban Program, that had federal funds for sure tied to it. So there are a combination of, depending on what the grant is, whether it's state only or, you know, federal funds filtered through the state, like last year's downtown project. There's a combination of both.
It's kind of, and Moody's kind of looks at it like your own house. So we did the downtown project, and there was, how much was it, Chad, that the federal government gave us for that project?
Last year was 2.9 million.
2.9 million. So let's say that was your house and you needed a $300,000 mortgage, and you already had $200,000 in a grant. So your interest rate is going to be much better knowing that you have a source that you don't have to pay back. So Moody's kind of looks at it the same way when they're looking at our roads. They're super excited to see that you're going after and trying to capitalize any of those dollars and aren't being taxed upon your, on your citizens, and that you're able to push against the debt so you don't have to take out so much. If that makes sense.
Off topic, but do we have an estimation of what Oshkosh Street is gonna cost?
We got the bid, so I don't have that in front of me. It came in lower than what we expected.
Way lower.
Yeah, it was good.
Good.
So, yeah, I don't have that right in front of me. We was approved at a
Maybe at
previous
a
meeting.
Next meeting, upcoming meeting, it would be kind of cool to have a
I
breakdown.
could probably have it for you by the end of the meeting.
Oh, well, I'm just saying, it would be
Yeah.
cool to have it broken down, like how it's getting paid for too. You know?
Okay.
So we
Because
got,
part of it's water, electric, and yeah, And
I'm just
then,
saying, it'd be nice to inform the residents,
Mhm.
of, hey, this is what it's costing, you know.
right, and then how much we're getting in a grant.
Right.
And I'll take the opportunity to plug again. So if anybody's got street related questions, we have that website, newlondonwi.org/streets, that has historical data on all our street information. So how much street reconstruction cost over the last 5-7 years, how much wheel taxes brought in, where that money has gone, how much money we brought in grants. So anytime you guys are questioned about street information or even see it on social media, push it out there. newlondonwi.org/streets. All that information is on there. I'm waiting on last year's data. I was gonna kind of waiting until all the audit stuff is done. Once that's all kind of done, Judy and Robert's gonna give me that information so I can add in last year's information, but great website for all that information.
Moving on to the finance director's monthly financial reports. Judy?
All right. Why can't it? No.
Is it turned on the bottom?
Oh,
Now give it a try.
Thank you.
Mhm.
All right, so we are in the month of February 2025, and we're taking a look at expenditures first. So if you look at the number of months divided by 12, that's approximately 16.67%. And when we look at this page, most of those are in line with that. The only ones that are not are insurance, and we pay all of that at the beginning of the year. So that is a much anticipated number being that high. And then social services, we pay all of our, weights and measures program. We pay that all up front too. They used to bill us monthly and I had them send it, I had them send one bill because it was not that large and I felt like it was just a lot of checks and a lot of paper constantly each month, so. I can see our equipment maintenance is running large, but sometimes they do a lot of that during these down months when it's cold outside, so that doesn't surprise me too much, but otherwise everything looks good so far. Any questions on anyone in particular? And we'll move on to the revenue side. And we did collect property tax revenue. So we collected about 74% of that through February. And then everything else looks much in the line of what I would anticipate. We are collecting interest much quicker than those rates continue to stay high. So we're at about 28% there. Again, if we continue to see those kinds of dollars, we'll push some of that into the capital fund at the end of the year. And otherwise, I expect us to collect in full all of our revenues currently in February. Any questions on any of those? And we go to assigned and unassigned fund balance, and there has been no changes with any of those since last time. I will make some changes once I audit, and you'll know about that too because it'll be presented here. July, August at the latest, and then we'll update our year-end unassigned fund balance at that time. And then wheel tax, we're using most of that, or right now we're using that for the House Alcon Engineering. So we've taken in about 10 and spent about 4. So we have about 6,000 left in there. And again, we could receive that grant through North Street, so eventually those dollars would be taken out there. And then our bonding schedule, this is the 23 GO debt bonding that we have. There's 2 projects left. One is the library and the other is the actual work on House Alcon Road will come out of here at 180,000. We'll have another one of these once we get the revenue bond completed. And then these are just the checks that were written. And then that takes me up to my month of March. So I finalized information needed for the 24 audit. A lot of March is spent doing audit work, actually January, February, and March in between tax collection. I try to find as much time as possible to get those schedules ready for them. So I add fixed assets to the general fund and our wastewater treatment plant. And then they have an actual software program that works out pretty nice. I used to try to scan and send all of that information to them. Now I open up, they have Suralink, and I can take PDFs and just move them over, and they're like magic. And they just upload into their system. I was actually doing some of that with Brent this afternoon. April and Missy completed the special assessment schedules for the audit, and then I reviewed those. And the auditors were actually here last Thursday, so it was nice spending time with them. I like it when they come in the office. I don't think they intend to ever not come for at least that one day. Completed the information updates for this committee, completed the financial information for the Oshkosh Street utility bonding and other information, including building permit, taxing, and sent that over for processing to Ellers. Also, the bond attorneys have information that I need to complete for them. So I did that. Providing financial information to the state of Wisconsin, because utilities now has a safe drinking water loan. So every time we go to bond, they now need financial data to say that our bonding through Ellers will be first if we go in default, and they will be second. So anytime we go to bonding now, that's an extra step that'll have to be done. Stephanie and Missy and Chad also have begun the process of working with NeoGov on our new payroll software. So they've been putting a lot of hours working on that. Attended a CIVMIC board training, the governor's conference for 3 days, and then also a CIVMIC board meeting here via Zoom. Wellness meeting, I updated their expenditures to date. And then last Friday, I went and met with Corey at Edward Jones on the annual payment and that portfolio. Any questions?
Have they used up all the money in the facade grants?
Did we what?
Have they used up all the money for the facades?
I'm in the process of reviewing those applications, so I will have that report probably for the next Economic Development Committee meeting. So they were due last Friday. They're sitting on my desk. I haven't had time to go through them all yet, but I'll have a report at the next Economic Development Committee.
See, there's more interesting.
Yes, very much so, which is good. I mean,
Yeah,
hopefully our
that's good, yeah.
downtown project
You got it there
spurred-
for, sure.
spurred more
Sure.
interest in facade enhancements.
Question about the library, did the bids come back for their project though?
Bids were supposed to be today. We pushed it back a week. We had a lot of questions from contractors, and after Keller contacted Ann and I, and after hearing some of that stuff, we just need a little bit more time to make sure the clarity is better for things. So it was, an addendum was put out either yesterday or this morning, yesterday, that the new bid opening will be next Tuesday at 1. So just getting more clarification for things.
Cause I know are they gonna be done, by next fall, or, I mean?
They have to be
Yeah,
for the contract.
Okay.
Yes. Not this fall, but I
Yeah.
mean, they're anticipating, and it all depends on what contractor we get, but they have to be done. There's timelines for the grant, and they have to be done. I think it's like May, June, July next year for sure. They got to be all done, and we got to have this all buttoned up by, don't quote me on the date, but like September of 2026 for the grant.
thank you.
I do have, Tim asked about, if you give me like 2 minutes, I did find the bid tab quick from the Oshkosh Street project, so I can answer your question right off the bat, Tim, about the costs.
Mhm.
This was the bid tab that was brought to the Board of Public Works and then the council when that contract was awarded. PTS Contractors was a low bid. So you can see it's all broken down by, first of all, sanitary sewer. So it's about $1.2 million planned for, or bid for sanitary sewer. Obviously, when they put out bid out, they're just putting a very rough, good estimate of what the unit costs or the lengths are going to be, and that's how everybody bids apples to apples. I mean, this length might be higher or lower in the end, you know, once they dig into things, but, so the bid was 1.2 million for sanitary sewer. It was 621,000 for storm sewer on the project. The street work itself, curb and gutter, asphalt, pavement, things like that, 1.3 million. And then the water side was 996,000. So in total, 4.2 million for the project. However, water and sewer are not eligible in the grant. Those are the revenue side of the utilities pay for the water and sewer. So the only things that are eligible for the grant are the street for 1.3 and the storm sewer for 621, because that's part of the street, getting rid of the water. So these are the eligible costs for the $2 million grant. Now, I can't remember what Robert said, if it's at 80% max or 90% max.
I think 90.
Yeah, I think it's 90% max. So we have to pay at least 10. So you can see if you add up these numbers, you know, we're not even at $2 million for the total eligible project cost for things. One of the reasons why that came down was originally when we wrote the grant, we anticipated, we didn't know for sure at the time, if we had to do complete 100% replacement of storm sewer. After everything was televised, there was only sections that needed to be replaced. So this cost came down quite a bit from what the grant we wrote, because we didn't have to replace everything. There was a lot of good sections of storm sewer on Oshkosh Street. So, but does that answer your question?
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you.
Right on the fly.
Yeah.
So then if it's 2 million, we have to pay 200,000.
We have to pay 10%, whatever the final cost is. Yep.
They
At
were
least,
looking to
you know.
maximize that 2 million.
Yes, yes.
So,
We definitely
I
want to
saw it,
maximize
yeah.
it.
It's maximized.
So, but
So
yeah.
utility pays for all the storm sewer and whatever. So does that affect their billing on their, you know, utility statements? Yeah, I mean,
So we pay the storm sewer, that goes with the
Oh.
city's part of it. Sanitary sewer is obviously the wastewater treatment plant. And then the water side is paid by the water, New London Utilities, with the water bill. So, but that's the bonding, you know, for the water and the sanitary.
I got a question for you.
Mhm.
Now, we're tearing up that street completely, putting in water sewer and storm sewer.
Mhm.
Wouldn't it make more sense to replace all the storm sewer? So it's all new, put in at the same date? Because now, say, I know they televised it. Say 2 years down the road, some of that old stuff starts collapsing. We gotta dig up the street. To me, that's just a waste of money. It don't make sense.
They're gonna maximize it as best they can. So, I mean, if there's really good storm sewer, you know,
Yeah, I know, but it doesn't make sense to do a project
Mhm.
and not do it 100%. And have to go back and do it again.
if the engineers feel it's going to last beyond the next lifespan of that pavement, that's what they do. You know, they'll make sure, I mean, we don't wanna, you know, ensure that's only gonna last 10 years and have to go dig it up again. That's exactly what we're gonna do with Mill Street, because Outagamie County wants to do Mill Street in a couple of years, but our utilities aren't gonna last another 30 years lifespan. That's why we have to target
Right.
utilities over there.
That's why I say dig up the street and replace everything and it's new.
They're working on it, like
The
Judy
same
said.
as they'll have to dig up the street again before that sewer is bad. It's gonna outlast the lifespan of the road.
I know it's, but if the sewer and the storm sewers are okay when you do the top part of the road, it's gonna be less cost than it is. If you gotta keep digging it up and patching it, then we're gonna be back to the same stuff we got right now.
No, they're gonna make sure that whatever in there can last. But to your point, you know, and I said before, these numbers, these unit costs, they're just for the bid price. You know, they can do more.
Well,
If needed,
I
yeah.
understand that, but
Yeah.
just to spot fix the storm sewer to me, doesn't make sense.
I'll pass that on to Robert and the engineer and make sure that we're replacing everything that we can.
I mean, I used to do that for a living.
Mhm.
If you're gonna replace something, you replace it all or leave it alone. That's all.
Sure.
All right, I entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Been made by Tim, seconded by Mike. All those in favor?
Aye.